Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Abilene People, where we have the most interesting people in Abilene here at the Abilene People Podcast on bigcountryhomepage.com. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very interesting person, City Councilman Blaise Regan, local attorney Blaise Regan, and newly announced candidate for Texas State House District 71, Blaise Regan. How are you, sir?
That's right. I'm doing well. I'm excited to get into it today. Thanks for having me on.
Man, I'm really glad you made time for us because you got to be a busy guy.
Yeah, things pick up whenever you announce there's just a million things to do, but It's exciting.
So how many emails a day do you think you get? So you get personal emails, then you get lawyer business emails, and then you get Abilene City Council emails, and now you're getting candidate emails. What do you think? Do you get more than 10 emails a day?
Well, spam alone, you got to factor that in. That's at least 400 a day. So it keeps me busy, but across, I think, the three or four, you got your personal, you got the law firm, you got the city, and now the campaign. So it keeps me reading a lot. But it's, you sign up for it. And that's part of the package, and so I love every minute of it. I loved every minute of the campaign for City Council. I loved every minute of being on the City Council, and I love responding to all the emails, the messages, Facebook, however they want to reach out to me. I'm all for it. I'm not one of those guys that goes, oh, well, I don't have time for that. I am in it, and I enjoy every minute of it.
So you are from East Texas.
That's right.
But
born deep East Texas.
You moved here.
Yeah.
You got to West Texas as fast as you could.
That's right, as fast as my parents could drive us over. So, yeah, I was born over in East Texas. I'm one of 12 children, so we all have the same parents. They're still together, retired, South Abilene, and we moved over here about 25 years ago. My dad was a doctor. He ran a hospital clinic over in East Texas, and then he became the medical doctor for the prisons north of town. And so we moved over here, I think, my freshman year of high school. And so I went to Wiley, graduated from Wiley, and then went to Texas Tech for undergrad. I graduated early, so I actually did college in 2 years. And so I had 2 years to kind of explore life. And so I went and taught English in South Korea for a year, and then came back, went to law school at St. Mary's, and then right after graduation, moved back to Abilene, took the bar, passed it, and I've been having my own law firm here for the last 14 years. So just doing business law and estate law. I don't ever touch family law. I don't touch crim law. Anytime that they're fighting over children and family law, that's not where I wanted to be and spend my life. So I have a lot of respect for the family law attorneys who do it, but I know it's not for me when you're fighting over children.
So as a city councilman, it has to be a juggling act because you're a busy guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a busy guy without being a city councilman. Mm-hmm. But looking down the road, if you're elected our state rep, I mean, goodness, can you maintain a local law practice and be our state rep? Because being a state rep's one of those that's not a full-time job, but it is a full-time job, right?
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people assume that it's a paid position, and it is, but I think it's only around $7,200 a year.
Yeah.
And so it's still a very much a public service position. As far as my law firm goes, Abilene has been incredibly good to me. There are not too many business attorneys and estate planning attorneys here, and so it's a very small niche. And over the last 14 years, it has been very good to me. And so, I spend 15, 20 hours a week already on city council issues, reading the packet, reaching out to the city manager, responding to emails from residents. And so for me, this is just going to be, a transition from city council to the state house, but I've already set up my law firm in a way that I'm able to take care of clients. And the nice thing about doing business law and estate law is I'm not in court a lot like family law or criminal law attorneys, and so my schedule is exactly however I want to schedule it. And so I have a lot of flexibility. If I want to take a month off, I can take a month off. I can work from really anywhere. And the nice thing about the legislature is that by law, your hearings all get moved if the legislature's in session. And so for me, there's really no concern about the law firm while we're in session. And so it'll be a nice transition, but as far as time commitment and everything, I'm already devoting that much time to city council. I'm going to transition over, and then being able to address it when we're in session. I'm very excited about it.
Well, listening to you, I'm just wondering maybe the pinch will come while you're campaigning for the state house and still serving as a city councilman. Can you do both of those things? And have you already thought about that dynamic? And has it
Oh, yeah.
crossed your mind, hey, maybe I'll just step aside from city council while I'm running? Or is that not a factor in the equation?
No, it's important to me that I finish my term. People elected me to do a job, and I'm going to do that job. Now, a lot of the responsibilities overlap a little bit, but I'm 100% in. I'm still reading the packet. I'm still going out and meeting with people. I'm still, talking to our city manager, our new one, Emily, on all those issues. So I'm as involved as I was, 3 months ago. And so for me, it's important that I serve out my term through May of next year, and with the primary in March, and then the general election will be in November. I will be able to finish out my term in May, and then the general election will be in November, and I wouldn't be sworn in to the House until January of the following year. So I'll be able to again kind of transition from the city council to the House without any overlap or issue.
And you obviously have thought that through, which is smart. I mean, that's what we would expect you to do. You were a political science major and graduate at Texas Tech.
That's right.
Now, are you the Texas Tech kind of guy that goes to the football games and does get your guns up and does all of that? Or are you the Texas Tech guy that, hey, I'm a professional lawyer, I'm buttoned up now. I don't do that kind of stuff.
No, I'm all about the guns up. I don't go to as many games as I wish I could up in Lubbock, but no, I'm a big fan of Texas Tech, and anytime I can go to any of those games, I'm up for it. I think we went to a Texas Tech ACU baseball game. Was it baseball? I think it was somewhat recently, and that's always tough when you're
That wasn't
half. It was either baseball or football. I can't remember which one.
I frankly can't remember either, but I recall one of the ACU sports teams actually defeated Texas Tech. I don't know which
They came
which sport or
close.
which game. Okay,
They came close,
so
scarily close.
I don't mean to in any way, endanger your pure as snow record, but what's the fastest you've ever driven from Abilene to Lubbock? Can you share that, or do you just want to plead the fifth?
I just did a ride along with the police 2 nights ago, and I am definitely not answering that.
I remember in college, I went to Abilene Christian, and a buddy of mine lived up north of Lubbock in Littlefield, and the game was always, can we make it all the way 30 miles past Lubbock to Littlefield in the same amount of time that other people go to Lubbock? Now, not that we ever achieved that, but that was always the goal. Okay, so I want to do city issues, and then let's go to your candidacy a little bit. And these are quick hits. We don't have to spend a ton of time, but you recently said something that was just shocking for a city councilman, and I want to just get it out there. It was shocking. You said, it was so shocking. You said relative to city taxes, you would like to see a decrease. Now, I woke up in the hospital several hours after having heard that. Couldn't believe that somebody had said such an audacious thing. Are you for real? Is that window dressing? Or are you for real?
It was an interesting fight. One of those things that I didn't necessarily think that it was going to be a fight, and so I was kind of shocked, just as much as many people, when it became that much fight. So for me, every year is a little different as far as what city council has to address needs. Years ago, it was we've got to address manufacturing. We've got to address streets. And streets are forever going to be an issue, just as they're an issue with every city. But this year, the pain point, I think, has been not just complaining by residents and small business owners, but it has ratcheted up to a level where the feedback has been, hey, taxes have become a make or break issue for a lot of people, residents and business owners. And I mean, you have one business owner told me that his taxes went from $3,000 last year to $19,000 the next year, and you just can't budget for something that's going to 5-6 times in 1 year. I don't know how you overcome that. And so for me, it was very important that we address the tax and how much our residents are paying, because water rates are going up, electrical rates are going up, food prices are going up. we needed, as long as our budget could afford it, I wanted to give as much tax relief as possible. It's only one little piece, but it's important to me. Now, where I think a lot of people get confused, you have the tax rate, you have the actual tax revenue that the city brings in, and then you have the appraisals. And so, the city doesn't control how much your house is appraised for. That's set by the county appraisal district. We get that amount, but we do have the small portion that we control is that tax rate. And that tax rate, if we leave it the same, if we do nothing, we keep the tax rate the exact same, you're really paying more in taxes most years because your house appraised at a higher amount. And so even if we keep the tax rate the same, you're going to pay more and the city will receive more in revenue. So for us, in order to keep your taxes of how much you actually pay, we've got to decrease that tax rate to balance out what the CAD has appraised your home valuation at. And so for me, we are getting, as a city, we're getting more revenue this year from all the new buildings that have now come online onto the tax rolls. Great Lakes Cheese, the Data Center, massive amounts of sales tax, but also property tax. And so last month we got an additional $3.4 million from sales tax that we weren't necessarily expecting. The month before, we got an additional $2.2 million.
So why is there an argument about decreasing my taxes? Because I'm just a little guy paying a little bit. Why not decrease? Where's the argument?
Yeah, well, and there's things that people still want to fund, and priorities are for council members, and none of these are wrong. You just come in with different priorities. For me, it was tax relief. I wanted to help that break, but some wanted, and as we saw in the vote, some wanted no. We will keep the revenue higher, and that way we can put more towards the excess funds, so we have a little bit more cushion in some of the excess funds. Now, that was their call. It's not necessarily, it's nothing. For me, the priority should have been tax relief for the property owners. We were able to decrease the rate, but they still pay more because their appraisal went up. And so that's where I was trying to balance out, hey, we're getting additional roughly $4.8 million in property taxes from all this new development. Let's take the final additional $720,000 that we got from the final appraisal, take that $720,000 and basically give it back to the people so that we can drop the tax rate down to almost to where all the new revenue that's coming in is just from new buildings. It's not from your house being appraised at a higher amount. We were if we had put that $720,000 towards the decreasing that tax rate, we would have been off by just a little bit. And so it was so close, but we ended up getting, the initial proposal from staff was a tax rate increase, and I was 100% against that. And then it was, well, let's keep the tax rate the same. I was opposed to that. In that second to last meeting, we got it down, reduced, and then in that final meeting, it came in that we had an additional $720,000. Why I voted no against the budget was because I believed we needed to put that $720,000 towards an additional tax rate decrease. The rest of the council didn't agree. Again, they have different priorities, and that's why you have a council of 7, because we have different priorities. It was frustrating, but that's where my head was at. That's where my priority was.
Well, and and we can move on. I don't know. It just, from the average guy out there, it just seems like, God, it never ends. More money, we're spending more money, tax me more, spending more money. My God, it never ends. And so it sounds like you have empathy with that point of view.
Yeah, I mean, and it's easy to just say, let's keep things as is. It is very hard to be, no, let's actually do something different. And, I don't go into these meetings wanting to be a 1v6 vote. I don't like being that solo vote. And a lot of times, when it's a 7-0 or I'm in the majority, that's a good thing, because it means that I've brought at least 3 other council members over to my viewpoint. So whenever I've got a 1v6, and they happen quite often, But I always take those as a failure on my part to bring at least 3 other council members over to my viewpoint and understanding. So I don't wear them as a badge. I don't tout them. It's a sign that I need to do a better job. But I certainly don't shy away from being a 1v6 vote. I think it's important that there be that voice on the council.
So recently, the council discussed the Bring Your Own Bottle initiative or law or regulation, and the idea seems to me was it was a conversation about alcohol that turned into a conversation about safety, common sense. It really is about safety, isn't it?
Yeah, you're talking about the BYOB,
The
bring your own
BYOB,
beverage policy. Yeah, so that was one of the most interactive and rewarding, I think, discussions that we've had on council since I've been on. The amount of feedback and input that we got, both through emails and through people actually attending the meeting, was a lot, and it was actually very encouraging to see. Hey, when there's an issue that directly affects people, they're going to show up, they're going to speak up, and so the amount of feedback, staff proposed to us. A possible solution as far as the ordinance goes, and it was pretty severe. It was going to require all property owners that had a BYOB policy to have metal detectors, to wand people down, to have a security guard for every 50 patrons, and for a place like, let's say, the Expo, which some of those events will have 5,000 people, you'd have to have 100 officers there. And our police department only has 220 or so. And so there was an impracticality that we needed to address.
And wasn't, I'm sorry to interrupt, but wasn't the issue really just one or two, I'm going to use the term bad actors because I hear that on TV sometimes, and I like to hear it. Maybe I could say it sometime. But seriously, there was just one or two that had repeat offenses, and take care of that and we can move on, right?
Yeah, it was really, the request was, hey, give the police the tools to address this one or two kind of bad seed, bad actor.
Yeah.
And so the discussion was good because the council went, hey, I think we may be coming in too hot, too heavy on this for just one, when all the rest over, many, many decades of this being in place, we haven't had this issue. So let's not come in overhanded. Let's not bring in too much government regulation. Let's give the police the tools they need, because, there were a couple of shootings and people lost their lives. And so it wasn't something that we could sit on our hands for. We had to address it, but we didn't need to penalize all the other businesses that were doing good and managing their operations well. So we ended up enacting a ban on those type of operations between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. And so that's one of the things that the police requested, and so that's what we enacted, and I think that's the main tool that the police have now. If they need to come back and say, hey, this is not working, then we'll look at it again. We've workshopped it so much that I think we're in a good position.
So I want a couple of more city issues, and we'll move on to the state house race. I don't know. I'm a little confused and concerned and don't really know why about the data center. And I'm sure you know more about it than the average person, certainly more than me. They got a big tax abatement, but we're still going to get a lot of tax revenue from that, right? Because that was one of the reasons why you said, hey, we're going to be able to give a tax decrease, give the regular citizen a break because of this stuff. But that is going to be a tremendous amount of electricity needed to run that thing. I think they're going to end up with something like 4 million square feet of space with a bunch of servers in there. I like to Google and occasionally use AI. I guess it's just growing. What's going on out there?
Yeah, it's a huge project. I toured it back in December, and just the sheer scale and the size of this is amazing. And they've got part of it up online now. They're still working on the rest, but just the sheer size of this is amazing. For Abilene, we were at the forefront of this. Several years back when this project kind of got a little bit of feeling for our area, and it kind of grew and took off. And the amount that they have built in the last year and a half is just insane. But we had, this is a massive project. We wanted to make sure that our two biggest resources were protected and that we knew what we were getting into, water and power. You don't do anything in West Texas without our most valuable resource, water. And so for us, knowing that other data centers out there used a lot of water, we didn't want to be in that position. Now, it's one thing if a data center is using a lot of water in Louisiana where there's plentiful water, they can do them. But for us, it was important that we required them to be on a closed loop water system. So that way they pull the water out, they put it in the loop to cool their hardware, and then it's closed off, and then that same water is just circulated over and over again. And so once they have charged their system, there's no more water being pulled out of our system unless it's for maintenance or flushing the toilets and sinks up at the Lancium site. And so that was something that we had control over. That was something that we knew that we needed to safeguard our water. Now, under this system, they're not even going to crack the top 5 as far as water users in Abilene. So, Coca-Cola plant uses more water than Lancium will. So, as far as concerns about the water, I think they're valid because people in West Texas value our water. It's incredibly important, and so that's why we need to do a better job about getting the information out. Hey, we understand, we're in agreement, we address these concerns this way. Now, where I have some concerns moving forward is not necessarily with Lancium because they're on that closed loop system, but the other potential 3-4 data centers that will come into the surrounding counties that Abilene doesn't have control over, and so whether they go on a closed loop system or not is up to them.
So that big one that's coming up to Shackleford County, just really outside of Abilene, are they going to compete with us for our water? And I know you can't really do anything about it.
Well, and so they would be outside of city limits. So the city sells water. So if we chose, we can sell them water, and it would be at outside city rates, and that's something that's negotiable, by our city manager and with them. I don't know what their planned on water source is. I don't know if they're hoping to rely on us selling them water, or if they're gonna do something else. But at this point, they'll have to resolve their own water system. If we choose to, we can sell it, but it's going to be out of city water rates.
And so, as we sit here, and I said we'd be brief. I feel like I'm spending too much time because I realize it's the one in our city's done, and you guys negotiated as best you could. Mm-hmm. These others that are coming in, or at least one other that's coming in, but I think you said that you used the plural, others that are mm-hmm. coming in. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's the unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so I've asked, well, why did they want Abilene? Lancium. Why did they want to move to Abilene so bad? And it's because of all the what's called stranded power here. All the power that's generated up in the Panhandle in West Texas. It's too hard for them to transmit it to Dallas or Houston, the bigger cities, and so you just have a lot of power that's stranded. And so these data centers are coming in to tap into that stranded power and actually use some of that otherwise wouldn't be. The potential problem, though, is that these data centers suck up a huge amount of power. Yeah. And so and people are saying, well, nuclear power. Well, nuclear power to build these plants is years down the line. And so for us, there's going to be a little bit of a gap of power and supply and demand. And so for me, that was one of the issues. I know we're talking about city issues, but for me, that was one of the issues pushing me to run for state representative is as I'm having these conversations on the water and the power, we were almost too successful on bringing too much manufacturing. I won't say too much, but a good amount of manufacturing here, whether the data centers, Great Lakes cheese, and we're getting a lot of benefit from those. And there's growing pains. And so one of the growing pains that we're seeing on the potential horizon is power and water. And so these are sometimes, water can sometimes be a city issue, but a lot of it is, Cedar Ridge Reservoir is a massive project that will take both the city and state involved. Power, what I keep hearing from business leaders and transmission companies is, hey, power is not a city issue. There's not really anything that the city can do. It's a state issue because they're pulling the power for the data centers off the entire Texas grid, and so those rates, they may go up for just Abilene residents, but they're also going to go up for the rest of Texas, and so it's a state issue. The data centers may be here. But it's the entire Texas grid that's going to be increasing on the demand, and so we've got to make sure from a city, but also a state perspective, that we're encouraging someone, companies-wise, to come in and use all this energy under our feet. All this oil out in West Texas, we got to maximize that. We have wind, we have solar, nuclear's on the forefront. With the next lab and these small nuclear reactor potentials up in Haskell County, but we've got to make sure that we are addressing the concern that we need more supply in West Texas. Now, the good thing is that brings jobs. The power plants have to be built. It requires, graduates, welders, plumbers, all these guys coming out of TSTC. They're good paying jobs. We're seeing that with Great Lakes Cheese and with the data centers. But on the actual supply of power, we got to make sure that we're being aggressive to bring that supply here before we see our rates increase.
So I think that folks are excited about growth and excited about, even if the unknown scares us a little bit, but we also have touchstones for reality. And, not too long ago, United Airlines came into our airport, what I like to refer to as Abilene International. Mm-hmm. And it was international, though, because they had a direct flight to Houston. And that was kind of international, because my wife took advantage of it many times. Her folks lived down there. But yeah, that was so convenient. It's so nice, and they got a nice load of money from the city, and then they got a nice load of money, I'm assuming, from the federal government treasury. But I think they got about $1 million all told. Now that wasn't all Abilene City money, right. But their agreement was to stay no less than a year, and it was right at a year. Boom, they left. So there are legitimate concerns people have, like, okay, fool us once,
right.
Shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on. Wait, how does that go? Anyway, sometimes people feel a lot of shame and fool.
Right.
But I hear you saying, to your best due diligence, you can say, all this is really pretty good, and we've done the best we can. Mm-hmm. Is that fair?
As far as the growth?
Yeah, the growth, managing the growth,
yeah.
And all the challenges that come with it. Because look, my property taxes are going to go up. That's a reality that we all have to face. Finding anything, if you got a friend that's moving to Abilene, you better tell them to look quick, because there's nothing available to rent or buy. There's growth challenges, growing pains.
Well, and I think it's unique growth, and how I'm going into these new opportunities is this way. We want growth, but we don't want growth just for the sake of growth. We want good paying growth, and I think that's what's happening. The amount of money that's coming in through the data centers here is game-changing amounts. And so what I don't want to have happen is we bring in these big companies and it only benefits them. And then we're the ones as residents suffering the consequences of the higher rates, electrical power, tax rates, et cetera. So my mentality on this is, let's bring in these data centers or these manufacturing companies, but we do the deals in such a way that on the sales tax and the property taxes, that we're going to be able to take that money and use it to actually offset the increase in water or power that otherwise would have. Because if a city like Abilene had stayed stagnant and we were in the same place we were 2 years ago, residents' power and water would have still gone up. Now, we have a unique opportunity here because we've got these brand new massive operations coming here that we are now taxing, that we have millions of dollars worth of sales tax, that we can now take that money and put it towards offsetting the increase in water rates or the increase in electrical rates or the tax rates. And so that's what I was trying to do with the budget. I don't think most cities are in this position. And so we've got to recognize that we're in a unique position. And if we plan accordingly and plan smart, we can take that additional revenue that we're getting from the new businesses and actually benefit the residents by lowering their rates. It's not going to happen magically, and it's got to happen intentionally, but I think it's very doable. And that's kind of my mindset on City Council, and it's my mindset going into the state House, is how do we use this growth in Texas with these budget surpluses and actually use it to decrease the property taxes, decrease the electrical and the power, instead of just going, well, we can't do anything about that, and we wash our hands of it, and we just see our electrical and power and water rates go up and up and up.
Would you like to see, as a Texas Tech alum and future Abilene, thinker, visionary, would you like to see Texas Tech come to Abilene and open up a Texas Tech at Abilene campus?
Well, I mean, they're already here. I think they've
Well,
been
of course.
great partners here with the nursing and
The nursing and the pharmacy, sure.
Yeah,
But I'm talking about get your guns up, Red Raiders, four-year school.
I haven't heard any talk about it. Now, maybe I'm just out of the loop.
No. I don't think
yeah.
you are. I don't think you're out of the loop. I'm just saying, wouldn't that be something?
It would be. I mean, our education system is great. We have 3 universities, plus we've got TSTC, we've got Cisco. I mean, we are a vibrant community. I always like to see tech anywhere and everywhere I go. So even if it's a tiny little campus, I'd love to see them.
Yeah, but a public state institution here would be an interesting thing.
I would agree. I would agree.
In fact, the first time I heard the conversation was from former City Councilman Steve Savage at the very end of the podcast. He brought this up, and it kind of blew me away. I never even heard of it. I thought it was a novel idea. Okay.
I'd be 100% for having a larger Texas Tech presence. Yes.
Yeah, and it has its place. Anyway, okay. I want to talk real quickly about the race. I want to honor your time. We said we'd be done by now. We're not quite done, but I want to keep you here for another minute. I want to talk to you about why you're running. When you announced, you said, and this is I understand. It's great verbiage. It looks good. You look good saying it. Hey man, West Texas work ethic, passion, energy, optimism. It's Blaise Regan all over that. I get that. But policies, why are you running, and what would you like to do? I mean, I know you can't say everything, but give us the nickel tour of your policy, shopping center.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and just first to kind of address the optimism and the work ethic, I think for me,
But you're such a pessimistic guy.
Yeah,
you don't work hard, and you don't have a lot of passion.
Well, and I've really seen that optimism, that passion come out in Abilene, especially over the last 5 or 6 years. I feel like it's palpable now in a great way. I mean, people are talking optimistic about Abilene, and it's not, it's not just one thing. It's so many things that are coming together. Yes, it's the manufacturing growth, it's the downtown, it's the Dyess Air Force Base, but just across the board, the people just in their daily lives are feeling it. Yeah, you're going to have some ups and downs, but this wasn't here 10 years ago. And so the optimism and the passion and the drive of like, hey, I can actually graduate here and start a business here. I can do whatever I want here. I don't have to move to DFW Houston. For so long, we said that in the hopes that it would come about. And we're actually at that point where we are in it. People are wanting to move here. They're wanting to stay here to retire, to start the job, start a family. And so we've got to, part of that growing pain, and part of, it's not just Abilene, but it's the surrounding counties, the surrounding communities as well. You see it in Clyde, Buffalo Gap, Tuscola, Merkel, all the way up, to Anson. You're seeing those growing pains. There's that optimism, but we've got to manage it well, whether it's the power, whether it's the water, whether it's the growth of the jobs, whether it's the traffic. People move here for the jobs, but they also move here for the retiring. And they go, well, I don't want the more traffic. And you go, fair enough. Let's make sure we're staying ahead of that with TxDOT, doing the improvements down by Tuscola and the improvements on I-20. So we got to stay ahead of that, but we've also got to stay, competitive and know, hey, we're going to get some benefits. If you're a retiree, you're going to get some benefits from that growth because there's more things to do, and so your kids and grandkids are more likely to visit you. As we grow, there's more health care here, more clinics and hospitals that will take care of your aches and pains as you get older, and that you'll be able to stay here as you retire, and maybe as your health declines a little bit, rather than you get to a certain point and you have to move to Fort Worth or Dallas or Austin just for medical needs. And so there are growing pains, but with that growth comes a lot of benefits that we have to recognize and be optimistic about. And so for me, that was a large reason in running for state rep is this is about our whole big country area. This is about West Texas. Growing, doing it properly, but also a lot of the growth historically has been in that triangle of Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston, and politically we've seen our voice diminished because we have historically been growing at such a slow rate, while those big cities have just been skyrocketing. And so their number of representatives, the amount of money that they can throw at an issue that's affecting them has really, I won't say silenced our voice, but it's greatly minimized West Texans in their voice in the legislature. And so to balance that out, you really have to have someone that's passionate, energetic, that's going to bring the conservative West Texas values that lives and breathes them. I grew up conservative. I know why I'm conservative. I'm not just saying these because it's a good soundbite. Like, I live and breathe these things, and I think my voting record on the city council, proves that I'm willing to fight for what I believe in and these conservative values. And so for me, that's what I want to bring to the state house. This position, Abilene doesn't have, our state senator is out of Lubbock, Charles Perry. Our congressman, Arrington, is out of Lubbock. For Abilene and kind of our 4 counties, our really only voice at another level is our state representative. And so it's extra crucial that we have someone that's going to bring passion and energy and optimism to it. And that's what I hope to bring.
And right now, as we sit today, it's a race of 4, you and 3 others.
6, I think.
6?
I think
you mean
there's
since
6.
I slept, we've got 2 more?
I think 6 in total have announced.
Okay. I knew that all along. I was just seeing if I could catch you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so seriously, one of those, I just feel I've got to ask you about specifically
Sure.
because it's Liz's case. And the reason I've got to ask you about it specifically is because Stan Lambert holds the seat now, but he has announced he's not going to run again. She ran against Stan Lambert in the primary last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're watching this podcast and you're not familiar with that dynamic, it's a simple Google away or another of your favorite search engines, brought to you by the Data Center of Abilene.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you support Stan against Liz, and are you concerned that some of the same really huge personalities,
Mm-hmm.
like for example, Governor Greg Abbott
Mm-hmm.
and I think President Donald Trump actually put their name in picture? In fact, Governor Abbott came to Abilene and campaigned with and for her.
Mm-hmm.
Are you concerned about that dynamic at all? Do you think they'll do that again? Do you think they'll endorse you? Have you even thought about it, or do you care?
I'm running my own race. I won't say I put blinders on, but it's easy to get wrapped up in comparing yourself to others. And the way that I view it is, I'm running for that House of Representatives seat to represent the people. I'm not necessarily running against the others. They have their own issues, their own priorities, their own reasons for running them. For me, it's about letting the voters know, hey, this is what I bring to the table. This is why I'm running. I'm hoping that I can show to the voters this is why I'm the best voice for you in Austin. I'm not here to, slam any of the other candidates because we all have our own, priorities and issues. But for me, it's about telling the voters, hey, this is why I think I'm the best one, and this is why you should vote for me.
I appreciate that, and genuinely, I think that's it speaks of the optimism that you're all about. But at the same time, it was so surprising for Abilenians to see our representative being challenged
Mm-hmm.
by our governor and by the president, and from somebody who maintains a couple of residences, one of them over in the Metroplex. So I hear you. You don't want to bash. You don't want to talk negatively about others. But didn't that also raise your eyebrows?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that this is next level campaign-wise. This is statewide. There's going to be a lot of outside factors in this race versus a city council race, and so it's not just impacting the big country. There will be big names endorsing, I'm sure, other people in my race. For me, it is about why am I running? I haven't spent a lot of time testifying down in Austin. I haven't rubbed shoulders with a lot of the the politicians and the lobbyists down in Austin. I have been focused and working here in Abilene in the big country on things. And so for me, it's all going to come down to, well, what issues are now at stake in this election and in the next session. I think we had some really polarizing issues, school vouchers. You could kind of pick your issue of whatever you wanted to be hot about, but there were several issues in the last session that really drove, I think, an outside influence into the last race.
And the special session,
yeah.
the redistricting. And
yes.
That's pretty unusual. Right in the middle of the decade, the president says to the Texas governor, go find me 5 seats, and now we're redistricting. But
yeah.
I don't know. It just seems to me that I don't know. Just seems to me that we need somebody, whether it's Blaise Regan or whoever, that is Abilene first. Is that fair? Big country first. District 71 first. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I agree. And I mean, you're going to have your issue that you're passionate about. I am conservative. I don't just say that I'm conservative. Down the board, as far as the agenda in the special session, I agree with. And so if I was in session now, I would be voting for the items, and so there were a lot of things that I liked that the regular session did, and some happened outside of session, as far as banning in-state tuition for non-residents. I thought that was really good. We're having the THC debate in special session right now. I'm for regulating the THC. I don't think we need to be selling it like candy to underage kids or anything like that. So we need regulations, but we also don't want to ban it because a lot of people, including a lot of retirees here, get benefit out of that. And so as long as it's regulated and people know what they're buying, I think it can be a good thing.
Well, I mean, I can go down to the liquor store today, not that I will, and buy several different varietals of tequila, okay? I understand there is a difference, but at the same time, philosophically, what's the difference?
Yeah, and so I think that that we'll see if they resolve that in this special session. I think another thing as far as our national security goes, preventing Chinese, North Korean, Iranians from buying land here in Texas, I think is crucial to our state security, but also our national security. On the border, I think we've got to keep doing what Texas has done. It's great that the Trump administration has really stepped up and we're able to kind of secure the border now. But I think Texas needs to keep doing what it's doing because for me, I don't want the next president after Trump, if they're a Democrat, to come in and undo everything that we're working on because we kind of gave it all back to the feds, and we're right back to where we were under Biden as far as the border control goes. And so for me, it's important that we continue to do what we're doing on the border. I think we're making massive improvements. I spoke with our sheriff recently, and border security and fentanyl are the top two things. And so those are things we're going to have to address. They're not going to be fixed overnight, but as the state legislature, we've got to be involved in our own border security for sure.
So about that, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this because we're going to land the plane pretty quick and get you out of here to the 1,000 other things you've got going on today. But does it give you pause for concern that we have certainly a newly constituted and the behavior is new police force in America today? It's a federal police force that wears masks, doesn't present warrants, doesn't show a badge, grabs people, puts them in a van and drives them off. And then later, maybe days later, might determine that they're a citizen or they're here totally legally, and then they let them go. It seems like that's kind of, shouldn't we honor the due process rights guaranteed in the Constitution to everybody? I mean, it seems, I don't know, it just seems it's a little bit like some of the earlier conversation where we go to an extreme. That to me seems awfully extreme. Thoughts on that?
Well, now, ICE is regulated by the federal government, so that would be a congressman issue addressed. But I think we absolutely need accountability across the board. And I don't care which department it is. you absolutely need accountability. And so, as far as on the state side, as the representative, border security takes a number of different forms. Whether that's wall, barbed wire, buoys, whether it's increased patrols on the border, you know, for Texas, we've got to be doing a good job. We've got to, keeping our border security accountable, but we've also got to give them the tools to actually prevent the illegal immigration from happening in the first place, but also, deport those who did come in illegally. As far as ICE goes, we need accountability. Has the pendulum swung too far? I think it's a reaction right now from 4 years of kind of an open border, and I think you do need some extreme measures taken in place to kind of bring the pendulum back. Where that line is, I think, is ultimately up to the Texas voters and the American people. But I think we absolutely do need accountability, but it's got to be in a way that we understand, hey, we've got to fight back on security, the drug trade, the cartels. And so, I think as far as the masks go, on a practical level, I think when, a lot of these ICE agents are dealing with cartel members. And so there is that personal safety issue, that we often kind of ignore of, hey, I'm a ICE agent and I'm arresting cartel members. My personal safety, my family's safety is now potentially at risk for retribution. And so I think, in the media, we're seeing, masked figures, ICE figures arresting, but it's also from a personal safety issue that we've got to kind of recognize, hey, we're asking these agents to go in to people that you and I don't want to deal with, but we're having these ICE agents do the work that needs to be done, and we've got to recognize that their personal safety is at issue, and so we've got to give them a little grace.
So collaboration and compromise used to be the norm for American politics. Now it seems like those are dirty words. Do you consider yourself a collaborator and somebody that's not afraid to compromise to get a deal done and move down the road?
I think, yes, I think most legislation, whether it's on council, state, or Congress, it doesn't matter. Most of that is done through collaboration and working together. I think that only now in the last several years are we seeing kind of how the sausage is made. And so it's really visually pointed out the extremes, and now people can get more likes or more views if they kind of tout, a controversial opinion, whether it's based on reality or not. And I think that elected officials are being held accountable, both left and right, more frequently and more visibly by a lot more people, whether they're actually residents of your district or your state or wherever. And so there's more accountability. I think in general it's good, but I think it does tend to push people to make extreme statements or to say, well, I can't talk with you because you are moderate or you're just right of.
Yeah, where does that get us?
Yeah, and so there has to be, and that's where I think it's crucial to know exactly why. For me, why am I conservative? It's not just because I know that I'm supposed to checkbox these things and I'm supposed to stand for these things, and therefore I know the little tagline and I check that box and say that I am, and that's that. It's important for me. I am conservative. It's not a label that I slap on. It's how I think. It's how I believe. And so it gives me greater understanding of this is why I believe in this issue. And it allows me to know where there's potentially some flexibility of, hey, this is the ultimate goal on this issue. We didn't get 100%, but we got 99. That's a win. Or it allows me to compromise on some of the minor issues, knowing that this is the ultimate goal. And so knowing the reasons and the philosophy and the actual nuts and bolts of an issue, I think gives you greater understanding of where you can work with the other side, because ultimately, you need, whether it's a majority or supermajority, to pass certain things. And so you've got to work with the other side, but you've got to be able to persuade. And so many times the victories are ignored. Even on city council, I always take the wins where it's 7-0 or most of us vote in favor as a win because all the compromise and all the discussion about it has led us to that. Now, that doesn't get the news. That doesn't get the posts or anything like that. The controversy gets the likes and the views. And so people are only seeing the controversy and not the wins. But there are a lot of reasons to even, it's hard right working with just right of center, working within the Republican Party, we've got so many divisive issues, even within the Republican Party, that you've got to work with your fellow Republican. And so in the state house, it's a little easier because we have such a good majority there. But it's something where you've got to bring optimism, you've got to bring passion, but you've also got to bring some decency to it. And you've also got to be unafraid to say, hey, I'm going to vote my way because this is what my constituents want me to do. This is what the feedback is that I'm getting from the Republican Party. And, to have the backbone and the grit and the knowledge of why you're standing for something, not just because some rich person told you to.
So 10 years from now, somebody comes into your office down at the State House and says, Mr. Governor, what do you think? What would you love? I don't know, that joke probably fell flat, but, I bet 10 years ago you didn't think you'd be a city councilman. Maybe not. Who knows where you'll be in 10 or 20 years. But 10 or 20 years, where would you like to see our city? If you were describing Abilene to somebody 10 or 20 years from now, in just big, broad strokes, what would you want to be saying?
Sure. It's a good question, and I get asked it a lot, and it's mainly in the context of those that are fearful about the growth of Abilene. They're going, hey, I moved here because it was a quiet, sleepy town, and that's changing. And so, I kind of have to walk them through, hey, this is the vision. One, growth is not all bad, growing pains, but where I'd like to see Abilene is growing at a good rate where, and intentionally with certain industries, that we're able to take the revenue from those industries and use it towards increasing the quality of life here. Having better parks with shade and lighting. I felt like I was a broken record for the first year I was on council. A shade and lighting guy is how I was known for a little bit, just because, we've got a lot of heat in West Texas. We got to have shade at our parks. That's why I pushed for the benches at all the splash pads where the parents are watching their kids, having those covered and doubling those spaces around. And so it's those kind of small improvements that we can use these additional funds to improve the parks, improve the walkways, improve the streets. That is something that still kind of falls under the radar, or it's an easy complaint. But our streets, it almost feels weird saying, but our streets are actually getting better. You drive down East North 10th, or you drive down sections of Willis, and it's like, oh, this is a nice drive. We just repaved Pioneer near the highway, and it's a nice stretch. And so that's what I would like to see, is better roads, in 10, 15 years, better roads. Our schools have improved where we're getting growth, but we're not in danger of being the next Austin or Dallas. We already have those in Texas. Abilene doesn't need to be that, but we do need to be growing in order to sustain our healthcare workers here and our retirees, because if we're not growing, we're going to bleed those healthcare workers to other cities, and our retirees are going to follow them out of necessity. And so we've got to stay competitive with our fire and police. We've really, I think, made some good improvements on their pay, really being competitive. And so we're able to pull in now people from surrounding areas to Abilene because it's improving. And so that's really what I would like to see, and we're on that path. Abilene getting better. Better does not mean bigger. There are pros and cons there, but using the revenue intelligently to improve our parks, streets, and our facilities. And then, like I said earlier, using some of those funds to make sure that we're offsetting the water rates, the power rates, and just kind of improving total work and life quality here without just going, we got to grow for no reason.
Yeah, at some level, growth is inevitable, but good growth is strategic.
Yes.
And seems to me that that you've been an advocate. As we conclude, I was thinking earlier when you were talking about the optimism and you were talking about changing. You're you're at an interesting stage in your life because I don't know if you should certainly from someone my age group think of yourself as a very young man. But
There's wisdom coming into this beard.
Earned, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You're not too far ahead, looking too far ahead to middle age. I mean things change, but you bucked the trend. You came back to Abilene after Texas Tech and St. Mary's down in San Antonio. And so I think that one of the things that this new Abilene and the new optimism and the new strategic growth conversations, this may be an unfair question to conclude on, but I've never been known as a fair person. Do you think Blaise Regan kind of blazed that trail? Is that because of you?
I think it's a thing that guys and women my age, I think that they moved back, to start a family, to start a job, and we're just now seeing them step up to the plate. And I know a lot of people my age, a few years younger, a few years older, where they're going, okay, we're established. I'm not drowning in trying to find a job or a family or whatever, and they're at that point where they can go, okay, I can start giving back to my community. I can step up and serve, whether it's on a board, whether it's on city council, and I think this generation is feeling it, and I think it's getting support from both the generation above and 2 generations above, because those generations are seeing, hey, if we don't bring up this next generation, then Abilene will not have growth, and it will fade, and it will be a kind of an empty ghost town, right? And so I think they're seeing that they need this generation, and I think that we're stepping up and doing it, and I think we're doing it in a good way with good heart and with good passion, and so it's always encouraging whenever I see others in their 20s, 30s, 40s step up and go, you know what, I do want to serve on that board. I'm not going to get paid, but I know that board has an impact, and I'm passionate about it. It's the best way to serve, and so I encourage everyone, no matter your age, to serve. But I think a lot of praise has to be given on that generation right above us and 2 generations above us, because they are the ones that are going out and voting, but they're also the ones encouraging my generation to step up and go, yeah, it is your time. We do need you. And so I'm very optimistic both about Abilene, but also just about the collaboration between the generations. That may not have always been the case, I don't know, but for me, it has been. I've received so much support from retirees and from those between 45 and 65, and so across the board, it's been a great experience, and Abilene has been very good to me.
Well, Blaise Regan, so glad you came for the podcast. You are one of Abilene's most interesting people. Glad you were here on Abilene People.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
This has been great.
You're an interesting and compelling person, and will undoubtedly be an interesting and compelling candidate for our 71st District representative to the State House. But a lot of work still to be done on the City Council. I want to give a shout out to our ace producer, Travis Corrigan, TC or TCB, because he's always taking care of business here for us, doing all of the real live time editing. And thank you for taking care of business and joining us here on Abilene People. We will see you on the next one. In fact, scheduled just later this week. We'll keep it a little bit of a surprise. One of those 6 running for the District 71 seat. One of Blaise Regan's opponents in that race will be here, at least scheduled to be here, and you schedule yourself to be here too for the next episode of Abilene People. I'm your host, Danny Sims. Thanks for being with us.